Sounds great. I'm sitting in a high school office, so that sound you hear is the bell ringing. So I'm Brooke Gilmer. Thank you guys for having me. Project um, Discovery is one of my favorite programs that I purchased as a special ed director. First I'll tell you a little bit about me. I taught special ed before I came to the county office. I taught elementary and high school, and I did both self-contained and resource. So I did a little bit of it all. My favorite thing was self-contained. It was our little guys. We call them our AAA kids here in Alabama, but it was our kids with the 55 and below IQ that worked on the alternate achievement standards. That was my favorite placement. So I did that for, gosh, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, and came to the county office, and in 2012 took the job as the special ed director. I did 10 years as the special ed director and have just stepped back down to a 9-month position so I can have my summers back off, and the administrators that we have on here can appreciate that, I'm sure. I haven't had a summer off in a long time, so I'm more excited now for the end of school than I think I probably ever have been. But I loved being special ed director. I loved what I was able to do for our kids and our teachers. So I'll tell you a little bit about our system so you can see how we got where we are today with our curriculum. So you can change the slide. The Lauderdale County it's in Alabama. Most of you probably are not familiar with where. We are almost in Tennessee. We're in the very, very northwest corner. It's a pretty rural county. So just to tell you a little bit about our population, we have 9 schools plus a tech school. Our entire enrollment, I think right now for our school system, is right at 7,700 students. We have 1,200 special education students. So what we're seeing, and I don't know if it's across the board, if it's just in our state, but we are seeing in Lauderdale County, our general enrollment is dropping, but our special ed numbers are rising. So our numbers are going up while our total enrollment is steadily dropping. We have scattered around our county, we have 7 self-contained classes for students, and they're the students that are working on the alternate achievement standards. We have, of course, high school and elementary classes. 4 of those are our high school self-contained classes. So I have 4 classes that really needed some sort of curriculum to help them get ready for post-secondary services or whatever it was that they planned to do after they graduated. You can change the slide. And there were some things, and every district has their thing, but when we were looking at our transition program for these students, there were some things that we knew were going to be challenges for our system that we had to work around. And then we also had some things that we really had going for us. So one thing we've always struggled with in our system is geography. And our system is about 70 to 80 miles wide, running east and west, not so much north and south, but from our school on the far east to our school on the far left, it's quite a hike. So what we don't have is the ability to centralize our programs like some districts around us do, especially the city districts. Our city district right beside us has 1 high school. So whatever transition program they put in place, they can make it a really great transition program at that high school, and they don't have to duplicate that. Well, we in Lauderdale County have to duplicate anything we do in our high school self-contained classes times 4. And so in special ed in general, that's always, it's a factor, and it's something you have to consider. Administrators, whether you want to or not, have to consider the cost involved with that. But we had some fantastic things going for us too. My self-contained teachers are fabulous. They are motivated teachers, because let's face it, you can't have a teacher in a classroom with that much variability who's not motivated and really go-getters and very energetic and have fantastic AAA teachers. Our classrooms, our self-contained classrooms are really well equipped. We've been really lucky. They all have pretty big classrooms or 2 adjoining classrooms. We have life skills, we have kitchen setups, we have little dining area and living area setups. They have laundry areas, classroom areas, technology. We have iPads, we have projectors, we have computers, we have pretty much everything we could think of to put in their class for classroom instruction. So I really felt like we were in good shape with that. Our teachers really focus not only on the functional academics with those alternate standards, but they're really good at focusing on life skills and splitting their time. And it's tough. It's tough as a AAA teacher to get all of that in. And Ms. Franks can probably talk more about that. Our system's also involved with post-secondary agencies. We have a couple of agencies locally. They do come to IEP meetings. I'm sure like every other state in our country, some of the services that our students may need to access after graduation, I think the waiting list is about 12,000 people long right now. So we try to work really early with our parents and students and get them on waiting lists and start working on waivers and try to plan for them after they're 21. And we have some really good contacts in those agencies. And so we had that going for us. And we also, right up until COVID, had a program we were involved in called Project Search. And I know some of you out there probably know what that is. Some of you probably never heard of it. Essentially, we connected with a local hospital and students from our self-contained classrooms who were finishing their school career. So this was their last year of school. And for most of them, it's the year they turned 21. They didn't come to school. They went to the hospital and they did job placements. They did 3 different job placements and they learned soft skills. They worked alongside people, mentors there at the hospital. And at the end of that year, they did that for a year. I had a special ed teacher there on site with them all the time. At the end of that year, there were job placement assistants also. And it was fantastic. It was really good. But you can, next slide. One of the things that we needed help with, though, is transition in our self-contained classrooms. Every year, we have to do the post-graduation surveys to see what our students are doing a year after they're out of high school. And one of the things that I kept seeing a trend for in the 10 years that I was in the director's position is that too many of our self-contained students, if you go back and talk to them or their parents a year later, they're not doing anything. They're sitting at home. And our teachers were working so hard in the classroom to do those functional academics and to do the life skills. And those students really had the potential to do more than sit home on mom and dad's couch and watch TV. And we just found that a lot. And it bothered me for a while, but I wasn't really sure what the answer was. I also recognize them from a community standpoint is it's a really underutilized population in our workforce. And when we implemented Project Search at the hospital, every one of our students ended with a job. They were employed, several of them there at the hospital. And our community needs workers like I'm sure most of yours do. So I needed something to better equip them for what they were going to encounter after high school. And I needed something to help them create a meaningful life, be that being more independent at home, a vocation, a job, a part-time job. We really needed in our system to work on that. What I wanted, and I knew in my head that what I needed had to fit certain criteria. It just took me a little while to look around and find exactly what fit our needs. I knew I wanted something functional and practical. I didn't want the teachers or the students to feel as they went through our transition programs that they were having to do things that weren't going to be useful to them later. I wanted them to feel like this is something that they could use no matter what they do after high school. And I wanted it to be hands-on. Most of the intervention programs that I purchased as a special ed director tended to be computer-based. I just feel like everything was computer-based, and I feel like all of our students are just sitting in front of a computer too much. But in particular, these students, they didn't learn that way. It just wasn't effective. And I didn't want to buy another computer program to put them in front of and let them watch more videos and do more lessons. I really wanted something that they could dig into. So the last thing we also had to consider, even within our self-contained classroom, so those are our students with the most challenges cognitively. But even within those classrooms, we had such a variety of needs to meet. We had students who were total non-readers, who couldn't read the first word. And then we had students who functionally could read maybe a first or second grade level. And so their post-secondary goals were very different, and their needs in the classroom right now were different. So on top of all of that, I was trying to find something that we could individualize to those students to make sure we're getting them ready for what they need to do after graduation. Okay. So this is where Project Discovery came in, the adapted series. And I said earlier, this is my favorite thing I did as a special ed director, was find this and implement it in our classrooms. And it checked all the boxes, all the things I talked about on the last slide that I was looking for, the not computer based, the hands-on, very functional, very practical. It checked every one of the boxes. And there were several other things too that I found that I really honestly didn't think about until I started digging into these kits and thinking, yeah, I actually need that too. And it just wasn't on my list. We have a hard time in special ed and self-contained classrooms getting accurate data. We don't have as many state assessments. The alternate achievement assessment doesn't give us necessarily real data to write IEP goals on, or to make 9-week progress reports, or to measure small steps of progress. It's tough for those teachers to find ways to assess their students in useful terms. And so one of the things that we were really excited about when we got these kits was they had pre and post tests. So, and they have pre and post tests, I think, in a couple of different versions. There was one for our non-readers and they circled pictures. There was pre and post tests for our readers, or just low level readers, and they had very low level reading requirement for it. And if I remember correctly, I think they could do it on the computer or they could do it on paper. But it gave my teachers not only a way to figure out where their students were and see the progress they were making, but for probably the first time, our parents got to see real progress. So many times, I think our students in these self-contained classrooms, we talk a lot about what they can't do. And I'd sit in IEP meetings and you feel like that's what you spend your time talking to parents about. And so it was so nice to have these graphs and these charts and show them, this is where we were in the beginning, and look at all of these skills that your student has learned. It felt good. I know it felt good for my teachers, and it was really useful for writing IEP goals. Another thing I really wanted to have was I needed something that was fairly easy to implement. Our teachers, my high school teachers, and I'm sure it's different in every system, they serve students in grades 7 through 12. So they're serving all of those grade levels, and they're trying to hit all of the standards in each of those grade levels. And you have students who need, behavior and social skills and language therapy. And so I needed something that they weren't going to have to spend hours and hours on every week trying to get lessons ready. Because as dedicated as they are, as wonderful as they are, there are only so many hours in the day, and I just couldn't dump one more thing on them that took a big chunk of their time. And so this was fantastic. There was not a lot of implementation upfront preparation. We did a one-day training. We had a trainer come in and they trained us on site, and the training was, here's your kits, open them up, let's dig in them, let's see what's involved. It wasn't a vague in theory training. We really sat down and got to go through the materials. And then after the initial purchase, we didn't have to pay a subscription every year, because every year when we would do purchase orders for all of the subscriptions we were piling up, the fees were astronomical. Like the amount of money we were spending on these programs that we were purchasing really added up. And so I like that this was a one purchase up front. We purchased whatever kits it was we thought was most appropriate for our classroom, and then we could add on each year. And so when we started working with Project Discovery, we purchased, I think 2 or 3, maybe, this has been years ago now, right up front. And we ordered, of course, all those times 4. So we invested that money in each of our classrooms, got the kits that we purchased. And then and when we got money, and special ed directors out there know this, sometimes we get money dumped in. We have COVID money right now, and it's not money you can use for salaries and things like that because it's not sustainable, but you want to do something with it that's really going to benefit your teachers and your students. So when we would get little pockets of money like that, I would go order 1 more kit for each of the classrooms, or 2 more kits for each of the classrooms. And I've made sure that all 4 of our classrooms have the same kits. So when I order 1 for 1 classroom, everybody gets the same kit. And so up front, there's a list on the slide here. We ordered, I think initially, cleaning, maintenance, greenhouse work, caregiver, and food service. There were tons and tons and tons to choose from, but those were Number one, we thought met the abilities of our students in the classroom. Several of our high schools have greenhouses, so we thought it would transition really well. And these are areas that in our community, there are job openings and there's a need for workers who do this kind of thing. And so we picked based on the abilities of our students, the interests of our students, and then our community and what kind of need there was, what their options were going to be after they graduated. So I had the easy part. I found the kit, loved the program. So I coordinated buying the program, paid for it, handed it off to our teachers. They did a one-day training right up front. And then Miss Franks, who is one of my teachers, can tell you more about how she implemented in the classroom, because then they picked up with the real work and they have really taken it and run with it. So Miss Franks, I'll let you take over and talk some about that.
All right, thank you. You can go ahead and click over to my slide. Before I get started, I kind of want to share with you guys my personal view of transition. It's my favorite thing to teach. Of course, we're all required to do reading, math, science, social studies, but transition for me, the way I look at it is I need to prepare you to not need me. I get you for 7 years because I have kids 7th through 12th grade and they can stay till they're 21. And I need to prepare you for life outside of high school. And I'm not going to be here forever. Mom and dad's not going to be there forever. Your grandmother and grandpa, whoever takes care of you is not always going to be there. And we need to prepare you to have the best quality of life possible when we're not around. And the world can be a mean place. And I may understand that you need certain things in order to be successful in my classroom. But I also realize when you go to the grocery store or when you go to the doctor's office, you're not always going to have those things. So how can I teach you to advocate for yourself and use your surroundings in the best way? And one of these things we did a special needs job fair. And this actually kind of spawned out of an accident. Our kids were drawing names at Christmas time, and they were drawing a name for another student to get them a gift. And we have this little Santa shop that gets set up by our PTO. They go buy different things and they give students the opportunity to come in and purchase gifts. And I kept thinking, what is a way that we can make this meaningful for our students? We had some classroom money to kind of play around with, but I didn't want to just say, all right, here's your $5, go pick out a gift for your buddy. I wanted it to mean something to them. So we got the idea to do the job fair, and the students shadowed different jobs throughout the school. We shadowed the janitor, the snack store worker, a lunchroom, and the groundskeeper, which is kind of like a version of our janitors. And they would work 1 hour shift with this person and help them take out the trash, take orders in the snack store. In the lunchroom, they swept tables. We filled out a timesheet. So we kind of tied in our math. We filled out our timesheet and they earned wages. So they calculated how many hours did I work. No, we did not pay them minimum wage. They just got a few dollars an hour. But we did that, and then they used that money to then go to the Santa shop and buy gifts for their Secret Santa. But this is something that we've replicated, and it's been really nice because you can only ask someone to sit at a desk for so long before they completely shut off. And this was a really great way to do hands-on. It's something that we've replicated. I would recommend, now that I've done it and kind of seen what works and what didn't, send home letters, get your parents involved. If you have parents that are willing to get in your classroom and help, let them know, hey, in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing a job fair. These are the things we're going to be doing. Can you help? For certain things, you may want to get permission for. We talked to the parents and let them know, we're going to be working with the janitors, which means your child is going to be involved with picking up trash, or we may be cleaning something. Is this okay? So just that's something to keep in mind. We have a little picture here. I put little emojis over their faces to protect their identities, but we had some kiddos picking up trash, and it was just so nice just to see them take pride in that. So that was a neat way that we've incorporated hands-on job skills. If you want to go to the next one. We do a lot of social skill integration with jobs. You know, you may have the physical or cognitive abilities to perform a task, but you're going to have to interact with the public. And can you do that successfully based off the social skills that you have? Some practical tips: I give my kids real world scenarios. You can see here in the picture at the table, we were taking home ec that year, and we practiced table manners. We had built, I think it was like a little squash casserole, and a little fun tidbit: they're all required to taste whatever they make for their grade. And that did not end well. But we practice table manners. Okay, if you're sitting at a table, are you supposed to sit like this? Are you supposed to sit like this? You know, what does it look like to sit at a table politely? How are we supposed to eat and hold our fork? Because the way you eat at home and the way you should eat if you're at work or at a job function is going to look different. One key thing for me is be very literal, model what you expect them to do, and repeat. It's not enough, like I said in the next little bullet, don't just tell them what good looks like, show them what good looks like, but also show them what bad looks like. When we go over a new social skill, we talk about, we were talking about waiting patiently. And they may hear waiting patiently, but they need to know that we say raise our hand. Well, if I'm being very literal, I can raise my hand and still say, Miss Franks, Miss Franks, Miss Franks, Miss Franks. Well, no, that's not waiting patiently, but I have my hand raised. Show them, okay, this is option A. May I go to the bathroom? Miss Franks, Miss Franks, Miss Franks, I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta go to the bathroom. Which one is appropriate? And they can pick out 9 times out of 10, they can pick out which one you did wrong. And they need to see that within themselves. So be very literal, model, get up there, act crazy, look crazy, because they're going to be able to tell you, hey, I just did that and it looks crazy when she did it, so I probably shouldn't do that. And we practice our skills in mock settings. You know, it's easier to write on paper what you should do, but to practice it within that setting is a totally different ball game. Our food service box is one of our favorites because everybody likes to eat and everybody has probably gone to a restaurant before in their lives. So we practice, you know, when you're putting drinks on the table for people, should you go, ooh, that shirt's ugly? No, that's something you should probably keep in your mind. Or if somebody asks you a question, how do you respond appropriately within that? And that's how we've incorporated our boxes. I call them our little kits. And that has been really successful for us. You can see in our journals, we journal. We do a journal entry every day. This is the picture of these two I bought on, I'm pretty sure it's something I bought on Teacher Pay Teacher. The number 3, you need help from an adult, but they're talking to someone else. What are some things you can do instead of blurting out? Raise your hand, wait until they're done talking, and then say, excuse me. You know, the one on top, sometimes you have to do tasks even when you don't want to. And that's when I tell them, listen, this is not just stuff for high school. Adults have to do this too. And we practice our response. So that's how we kind of incorporate our social skills within that real world setting. So you can go to the next one. And some of the social skills topics, this is everything we've covered this year. We have a student here on the right. He is job shadowing. We went to a little job fair at our local community college. All of our 9th graders got to go, and he's practicing doing woodworking, which is something we also have a kit on. And we've practiced putting together chairs. If you order something off Amazon and you've got to put it together, how to follow those instructions with basic tools. But our social skills topics that we've covered, of course, your basics: using good manners, being respectful, greetings, your expectations, what it means to do your best, waiting your turn. Managing emotions has been a big thing that we've talked about. Anger, anger is normal and anger is okay to feel, but how do you address that appropriately? And then, of course, communication is a huge one. Think before you speak, sharing your thoughts, and how to do that appropriately. You can go to the next one. And one of my favorite things to do is, yes, transition is important. Yes, I'm required to teach my reading standards. Yes, I'm required to teach my math standards. So how do I make it meaningful? So we incorporate our transition into reading. We read store maps. There are certain companies that are great to work with. I contacted Publix and I called them. I said, hey, I have a student that needs to work on reading maps. Is there any way you can send me a copy of your store map and we can use that in part of our lessons? They sent it right over. I got one from Target, Walmart, and Publix. And then I Googled one for like a Dollar General or something like that. And we talk about grocery shopping, purchasing items. Here's your grocery list. Which aisles do you need to go on to purchase these items? Reading medicine labels and food labels. That's a huge thing that they're going to need to know. If they're ever left at home alone and they're sick, do they know how much to take? Can they flip the label over and see, oh, this is medicine for allergies, not your upset stomach. This is what I take. Reading recipes and cooking. This is a reading and a math kind of goal. We look at food labels. Can you flip it over and see how much sugar is in something? We have students that are diabetic. That's a really important skill for them to be able to learn that this has more than 12 grams of sugar. I should not eat this as my snack. Or to make healthier choices. Reading the instructions on how to put something together. It's not always easy. Sometimes you get the weird pictures that say connect J to part B, but we've talked about that. We've put together rolling chairs. We purchased some online and they put it together for me. So it's a win-win. We practice social skills and I get my new chair. But reading directions on cleaning supplies. We do laundry. We I asked, my aides thought I was crazy when I asked this, but I asked the basketball team to bring us their dirty towels from practice. And what we did was we washed them and then we would fold them and give them back. So when they look, we use the pods because it's a little bit easier for them, but can they flip it over and see, okay, each load needs 2. So that's how many I need to put in there. Or this is how much to put in the dishwasher. We learned the hard way that you use the powder dish detergent in the dishwasher, not the liquid, because then you have a mess. Just things that you think about a task analysis. If you're going to have to break down an item step by step, we take for granted things that we know. So if you had to write down a step for making a peanut butter sandwich, you would probably think to say, first put the peanut butter on the bread. But what we don't think about is you've got to tell them to go to the cabinet and take the bread out. You've got to tell them to get the jar of peanut butter. So things like that, reading the food labels, store maps has been really successful for us. So next we're going to talk about how we incorporate transition into math. So if you'll go to the next one, please. So of course, counting and managing money. Huge deal. I have a friend that works at another one of our high schools. She has her students clock in every day. So that is a term that they're going to hear at work. They clock in, they sign their names on their little timesheet on the wall. They put what time they come in and they do tasks around the classroom. We have classroom chores. So every day at 2:00, our kiddos do this and they earn like wages. It may not be physical money, but we talk about wages. How can we use that to purchase snack? How can we use that money we earn to go to the Santa shop? Managing and understanding time is a big deal. If you work 7 hours today, we can incorporate that with money. So if you make, let's say 5, because we can skip count by 5s pretty easy. If you worked 7 hours today, let's count up 5, 10, 15, and figure out how much money you're owed. measuring items by length and weight. Again, with putting together the little furniture pieces, we talked about measuring things. Is this going to fit in the space that I have? We measure ingredients for home ec. We cook a lot. We do have an oven and a microwave in our classroom, which has been wonderful. And when on the eclipse day, we made an astronaut tang pie. Of course, the benefits of being able to eat the pie when you're done, but we measured the ingredients. You're going to learn the hard way that there's a huge difference in 2 tablespoons and 2 teaspoons when you're making something, and let them make those mistakes. Our home ec teacher has been great with us with that. One time, our students accidentally measured salt instead of sugar, and we still had to eat the cookies. It was nasty, but it was a learning experience for us. You can see in some of these pictures, in the bottom left, we have a student, we're making cookies. And it doesn't have to be extravagant. Make cookies from a mix, because realistically, as adults, does every single one of us make everything from scratch? No. Make things from boxes, make things from mix, get the roll of cookie dough and measure each cookie is going to be, I don't know, half an inch. It's a massive cookie, but then we have the food skills in the middle, student measuring and mixing. And one of my favorite things that you can see in the picture on the farthest right, the resource library, you can see it behind me. I think it's on the next slide if you'll skip to that. Yes, okay, my resource library is my favorite tool. In the first picture, you can see we have a schedule. We have boxes. Everything in green is a red, or no, everything in green is not red. Everything in green is a reading skill. Everything in blue is math. And all the shapes with the little googly eyes are transition or hands-on. And then you can see we have a couple where it's an iPad and we've connected them to an app. So what students will do is they go pick the card by their name. They find the box that matches in our little bookshelf. It is Velcroed together. And then they take that box back to their desk and they work independently. And we have everything from ABC puzzles to sorting silverware, as you can see in the bottom. We actually took those pieces from our food service kit that we bought with Project Discovery, and we work on wrapping silverware. That is 100% a job that my students could have in the real world. We've all seen the waitresses and stuff. You go to the restaurant and they're sitting at a table wrapping silverware. That's something they can do. That's one of their favorites. We took out some of our measuring things, the caregiver, like how to fold things, and we make them into individual boxes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a whole group activity. We watch videos, dirty jobs, of course, screen things for language and things that are appropriate. Community helpers, get people to come into your classroom and talk to your kids. Because anybody, if you write them something on letterhead, they can do things for their job. Just get people to come in and talk. Let them know what their options are, because a lot of people stay at home because they don't know they have other options once they leave school. Job shadowing. Have a kiddo spend his transition time with the store worker that week. Have a student go with the janitor that week and work. Exploring different electives. We are blessed in our school to have electives that students can take, like art and home ec. We have an ag shop where they work on like woodworking and greenhouse. That has been really great for us. It takes work off of you guys. If you can use your other resources, use your other teachers. Doing the laundry for ball teams. As gross as that job may have been, our students learned how to, you probably shouldn't have left that red sock in the white towels. So now the basketball team has pink towels. How to fold them and delivering them. I've seen all over Pinterest, the coffee cart idea, where your students work at a little coffee cart for your schools. And, that's job skills, that's money skills, that's people, social. A practical tip, I have a very set schedule for my kiddos. For example, they know every day at 10:30 we're going to PE. Every day at 1 o'clock, we're doing our data collection. Every day at 2 o'clock, we do our social skills. Set up a schedule, if at all possible, to incorporate your social skills in your transition. Because if you leave it up to if we have time, it's probably not going to happen. For example, Fridays are our test days. We cover all of our content Monday through Thursdays, and on Fridays, we have a transition time in the morning where they do their resource library boxes. We have our spelling test, we read a story, and then afterwards, we have a couple of hours where we can work on life skills. We can go into the kitchen and make a recipe and share it together, or we can do a project outside. Build it into your schedule so it's not something else I got to figure out how to fit in. That was a thing I had to learn the hard way. My first year teaching, it was sitting on Wednesday figuring out what I'm going to do on Thursday. But if you build it into your schedule, it makes life a lot easier. I One of the things that I feel very passionate about is I want my students to be the best versions of themselves that they could be. And part of that is helping families and students realize that your reality doesn't have to look like her reality. And by having these conversations with parents of, they may have been told in these IEP meetings, you can't do this, you can't do that, your child struggles with this, or they think, well, if I can't read, then I can't do anything. Or if I struggle with math, then I'm not going to be able to have a job. But look at your options, look within your community. Our community has been wonderful with working with special needs people, and we've been blessed in that area. But look at, there are things you can do successfully and focus on that. And you'll be surprised at how much it will affect their reading and their math. When they find something they're successful at, like wrapping silverware or filling up people's cups with water, vacuuming the carpet in the sensory room, things that find those little joys that they're successful at. And, think about life outside of high school and how they can become more independent. That's pretty much all I have. That kind of leaves us with a few minutes if people have questions. I know the emails we have are at the beginning. I'm sure Brooke feels the same. If you have questions of, hey, I've got this situation in my classroom, how in the world do I incorporate transition? Send me an email. I don't mind trying to brainstorm. To me, that's been the biggest benefit of working within a community of learners, is sending an email to one of my fellow teachers of, hey, I need to teach this kid map skills. How in the world do I make it meaningful? Or I'm trying to work on math and I don't know how to incorporate that. So I'd be happy to answer any of those questions, or if anybody
Awesome.
has any now.
Well, thanks, Abby and Brooke. But I really, I just have to say, there's a lot of discussion and chat on going on here. We're all really thrilled. I have pages of notes already. So, um, and just a couple of specific questions that I've pulled from folks that I'm going to pose to you. So, Brooke, if we go on back, there was, and I don't know, it might have just been the way that it came across. Did you talk about a triple A teacher or something along that line? What does that mean? I'm
I
not
do, and I
sure.
use that word without thinking about it because I think that's specific to Alabama. But that's in Alabama, we call it the Alabama Alternate Achievement Standards. So we shorten it for AAA. But it's our self-contained classrooms for our lowest functioning students
Okay.
cognitively, the
All
55 and
right.
below.
Well, see, that means that people are paying attention. That's a good test, right? A little pop quiz for everybody in the audience there, because we know what alternate assessment students and alternate achievement, but it was the other A that we were missing. And I thought, Brooke, it was really just so interesting, the whole project search with your hospital placements for students. What parts of the hospital do they get placed in? What types of jobs do you find that they've been recruited to?
They've done quite a bit, and we haven't last year and this year we have not been able to do Project Search because of COVID, and we're hoping to get it back off the ground. Um, they worked in sterilization. We had a student who learned how to sterilize the instruments needed in the surgery room. And instead of memorizing exactly the order, because when you get those trays, surgeons want everything in a specific order, and they couldn't remember that. So that they made little templates for them, so that every time they're doing a tray, they can match the shape of the instrument that's been sterilized to the order that it needs to go on the tray. The girl that did the sterilization a couple of years ago, they offered her a job.
That's awesome.
We had students working in the laundry. We had students doing, of course, cleaning. We had several students who worked in the food service down in like the cafeteria. We had, let me think, I, and now that I'm drawing a blank, but one of the things I was always really impressed with is the laundry, the cleaning, the food service. They were kind of things we thought of right off the bat. I mean, those were the first places we tried. But as word got around in the hospital and the people loved the students and they became successful and they were picking up all these soft skills, our teacher there started having managers in other departments come to her and say, I want one of the interns. Over a year period, they had 3 different placements, and I want somebody for a placement here. And so they ended up, and sterilization is a good example of that, working in departments that you wouldn't initially expect success or initially think that they would be open to having somebody. We had one little guy who he went before surgery or before people had tests, and he would pick them up and wheel them down to wherever their test or x-ray or their MRI was going to be. So he had to learn how to read maps of the hospital and etiquette when you're pushing somebody in a wheelchair. And
Mm-hmm.
it really expanded into several. I think we ended up having people in like 12 or 13 departments.
Wow. That that is more than I even expected, but that's awesome. And the big part about that, the hospital didn't even really know what the demand might be like, because as you first started, you started with one vision of it, and then as people heard about it, it just kind of grew. I think that's a big piece to it. You also mentioned about the assessments, right, and having the pre and post, and being able to show parents what students could do. I think that that's also something you can show potential employers, right? To say, here's a benchmark for laundry, or for setting tables, or for rolling, the cutlery together, and so here's what the student can do. Let's give them a trial and see what else they can do within your organization. 'Cause I think that's kind of interesting. Okay. For either of you, actually, how do you incorporate parent volunteers into your program? Abby, you mentioned a couple of times about getting people to come on in, getting parents or things like that. How do you do that while you're still fostering some independence in the children?
Well, the first thing is to ask, because the worst they can tell you is no. I've sent out many of emails to say, hey, would you be interested in coming and talking to a group of kids? And they say, no, it's not good. All right, thank you for your time. You know, look at, we have local restaurants. Would you be interested in talking about the type of jobs that you would have? We have a local nursery. Would you be interested in coming, talking to our students about what you do in your day? Kind of like career day when you were younger, or what you picture as career day. Just ask. Emails, if you don't want to pick up a phone call, because sometimes I hate having to be on the phone. I feel like I have a weird phone voice. So shoot an email, ask somebody, are you interested in doing it? And you'd be surprised at the amount of people that want to help but don't know how.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that people say, well, nobody's going to be interested in this. And you're
Mhm.
like, no, that could be kind of interesting, and let's give it a shot. The worst that can happen is that the kids will go, okay, thank you, but because you've already taught them how to be polite, which is a wonderful thing too. I mean, I don't think we should just be reserving that for our students in exceptional
Oh
needs
no.
programs and so forth. I think everybody can use a dose of that kind of, you know, up to age 100. We've missed our pieces here. Um, let's see, in a couple of minutes, I'm looking at questions we have. I'm going to answer a couple more about where you can get more information on the kits and so forth. I'll answer that in just a moment for everybody, because questions are popping on up. I just want to point out a few things that you brought on out, like where you were even just saying, that the let them make mistakes. How do you talk through mistakes with students? I mean, the salt and the sugar and all of that, that must have been hilarious. But how do you talk about it without making them feel bad, but helping them learn from it?
It's hilarious now. At the time, it was not funny because we had to eat it. We look at, okay, what's not right about this situation.
Hmm.
So if we have, I like to call them little outbursts. If we have a behavior, okay, what was wrong about our cookies? Well, they tasted nasty. Why did they taste nasty? Well, they tasted salty. Okay. So we realized where we messed up, and we're going to use this as an opportunity to know that next time I'm not going to make the same mistake. And the same goes with our behavior. We had a student that was helping someone on their computer,
Hmm.
and their headphones were not working. And the student's response was, well, I really wish there was something I could do about that. Doesn't necessarily come across as polite or good manners. So we say, hey, let's stop and think about that. Where was our mistake? And what are we going to do next time if this happens again?
Hmm.
And, for me, I've always been very real with my students. I make mistakes all the time. I do things, I mess up, and just being upfront with them, because sometimes I feel like kids feel like adults are perfect and we don't make mistakes. And for them to see me say, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. Let me try that again. And then they learn by watching, just like parenting. You teach your kids to do certain things at home, you do the same thing in the classroom. If I drop something because I was in a rush, tell them, okay, next time this is what I'm going to do if this situation comes up again.
Hmm. Hmm. I love it. I think that it's so important. And sometimes, little mistakes are really where you get your aha moment and you realize everything kind of gets put together. I love the fact that you had your students put your desk chair together. And it just makes me think that there's so many times in that the custodians of the building are probably putting things together and they may not realize that what they're doing could be a teaching example for
We
students.
deliver mail to people. We have every afternoon around like 11:30 to 12. The UPS guy comes and delivers packages. If we see a teacher's name on it, we'll have them go take it to their classroom.
Nice.
Postal delivery is very much something that they could do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even doing things that just help the school community, like doing the laundry for the ball teams. I never thought of that one. I've seen that we've had some people even here who have talked about their coffee carts. That's awesome. Becoming a barista. We've had, other things. I love helping with the mail for sure, helping with the gardens in the elementary school, if you're from the high school and things like that. There's some things that are kind of nice to kind of give back to your own community. So um, I know we're getting close on time. I do want to point out for everybody that we're really proud at Education Associates to have recently awarded Brooke Gilmer our Gary Bates Award. And Gary was one of our very favorite members of our team. Sweetest gentleman. He passed on last year or so because I'm in Fogland with my 2 years of COVID. It's like 8 years or something in my head. But we're really very proud to honor you with that, Brooke, and very happy to have you as part of one of our team. And Abby, for all the things that you do for students, it's really this is what makes it happen when we can go ahead and reach out to each other. So your contact information's there. We'll come back again to it in just a minute. I do want to just kind of bring us towards the end here. So, because we had questions about people who wanted to know where they could find more. So here's just some quick closing slides for you. On our websites, educationassociates.com, there's a resources tab that's right on up here, but there's a lot of things in there. Number one thing that's in there are webinar Wednesdays. That's this, and that's where this recording is going to live. So we will mail a copy of the recording to everybody who registered, but you can go back to this page and you can go look and see not only this session, but the others that we've done. And I think this is like our 19th or 20th that we did. We started it right after COVID started, and we've just been going nonstop ever since. So do go to our page for that. On any of our pages down at the bottom, there's a little red box to sign up for a newsletter. And some people don't like to, they're afraid to sign up for, they're going to get spammed. We don't spam anybody, and we don't even use it just for For it's not a salesy newsletter. It's kind of the summary of what we learn from people like Brooke and Abby. That we put it all together and we put those kinds of pieces in here. So a little summary of today's webinar will be in next month's newsletter and that kind of a thing. I think it's great just to have like all your teachers in your school sign up for that newsletter. They don't have to read it, but if there's something in there and you catch one new thing for each newsletter, I think that's always a great way to share as we're going along. There's also some other things like a preview packet. So if you haven't got a chance, some people here ask, how could they learn about what's in those kits? Go find, click for a preview packet on our website, and you'll get a little PDF file, and it shows you all the pieces and the list of titles. It lets you even listen to some of the audio because we have audio for non-readers. It lets you look at some of the video modeling. There's several different pieces that you can look and feel and get the sense to see what it is on your own. There's also funding information up on the website. So if you are still kind of grappling with and trying to figure out how you pay for it, Brooke, I think that was some of the really interesting pieces as an administrator. How does this really work, fiscally? It makes such a difference and it's a one-time purchase.
Yeah,
It's
and from a classroom perspective, there have been things like, say, if a teacher really wants a kit and it's not within the budget for their district, we little classroom fundraisers if the teacher would like to purchase. Our kiddos made jingle bell necklaces, and it was the most low-tech thing you've ever seen. It was a string of yarn with one singular jingle bell at the bottom, and we sold them for $1 a piece. And we went around and we send out forms for people in kindergarten. And one year we made $900
great.
selling little jingle
Yeah.
bell necklaces. And we used that to buy more things for our kitchen to add on to our food service. Just things like that you can do within your classroom if it's not something that at the district level you can afford.
Right, exactly. Definitely, those are those little pieces that you can just kind of get really creative about. So we try to support that up on here. And then if you really do want to take a look at it face to face, there's a spot up under resources where you can say, schedule a Zoom overview. And so then we'll have one of our folks get on with you one on one, and they'll actually go through each of the pieces and show you what everything looks like and as you come on through. So there's a lot of resources up there for you. We hope you'll check them on out. And I just want to say on behalf of Education Associates, thank you so much to Lauderdale County Schools for allowing you two ladies to share this information with us. It was really super. We really appreciate you. And we hope you have a great rest of your week. And school's almost over, May 26th. You're on, you're headed towards it right there. Everybody else, we've had lots of folks in different times. There's a very short survey, folks, when you leave this webinar, and it'll pop on up. So if you would just answer some of those questions, we'd appreciate it. I think there's a spot there where you can even say, here are some topics I'd like to hear more about. So if you could just make sure you do that, we'd greatly appreciate that. And otherwise, I'm just going to say, go have a great rest of your day. And we appreciate everything that you've done for us. So 3 cheers.
Thanks, Joyce.
My pleasure. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and if I find it, wants to actually do something for me here, I'm going to stop the recording. Okay.